and already how we can create a XML profiles manually. But today we'll see how we can create an XML profiles using the um, XSD. I have already given you some information about what is XSD and how we can create an XML profile using sample XML file and what's the difference between those two. Okay, I do have, these are the two XML. One is the XML profile I have. You can see the books information, and I do have the corresponding XSD. This is, this is a schema I have. I'll just create you, and just based on these two files, I'll just show you how we can create an XML profile, and I'll show you the difference. Okay, first let's first try to create an XML profile using a sample XML file. First take the full path, complete full path. Let's go here. Let's click on new component, select the profile, select XML, and then put book XML profile. Okay, so let's try to import an XML profile. Click on the root element and then select the import wizard, and then you can just select an XML file default and choose file. You can see that this will be the XML file I have browsed. Click on next, and when you click on next, it automatically shows you the root element. It automatically shows you the root element. Yes, click on finish. Now if you see, there was a two books element was there here. Two books element was there, and same thing it was two things are created. But for representing the book, here nothing but what it is telling, book can be repeated multiple times. For representing this much information, we can directly make this book information, entire book can be unbounded. You don't need to duplicate it book again. So it means I need to delete this. And one more thing is, you can see that by default, even though price is a number type or floating type, if you see already everything takes the character type. It means it will create a profile with all default data types, nothing but character data types. And one more thing is, if any choice element, if you define any conditions, we can define some of the rules in XSD file. Let's say that my title should be only 15 characters or 25 characters. Some that kind of a rules will be there. Restrictions, all those restrictions will not be applied. And if you are creating a XML profile based on your sample XML file, you may need to do some kind of other modifications. One of the modification maybe it might be the changing the data types, or then giving some other length restrictions, or might be giving some adjustment of your deleting your multiple repeating elements, unbounded elements. You need to change from the minimum to one unbounded. This kind of changes you may need to do it. So this is so whatever you are creating an XML profile, it's not 100%. But if you are creating a CSV profile, yes, based on sample CSV file, yes, you don't need to do any other further modification. But if you wanted to do the same way for XML profile as well, you have to use the XSD. If you are using XSD, there is no other further modifications will be required. This is 100% when you import it, it perfectly imports it. But XML profile is not 100%. You need to do some kind of other modifications, some modifications. Mostly it will include the data type changes and the max occurrences field, how many number of elements are there, those many number of elements will be created, and we just need to make sure we have to delete all the elements except the one element, and we can represent that particular single element as a unbounded. Like any restrictions you define in the access for this XML file, you may define all these restriction files. These kind of modifications you need to do. So let's import once again. Okay, let's select this and import once again using the schema now. How it will be. This is the schema. You can see it's the root element. Suppose if only one element was there, it's not telling it's the root element. And you have, by looking at the schema profile, you need to have an idea which is the root element you need to select. Or maybe by looking at sample XML file, you can understand what is the root XML file. In here, by looking at sample XML file, yes, it's books is an XML file. Books is an repeating element. So that's the reason. Same thing I just selected here. If only one element is there, you show only. But if you're showing multiple elements, right, you need to see which is the root element. Based on that, you need to select it. If you see here, it is created. Now if you see, you can see that data type, everything was taken properly, and even date, and then if any restrictions, if you define anything, all will take exactly whatever you define in schema, that will be replication will be here. And even you can see that this particular thing will be unbounded. So what they have done, instead of creating everything inline, they have defined in kind of a reusable types. Like they have defined some types. The types they have been referred it here. This is a simple element. You don't have any other type. You can just see there will be no type will be filled out. And if you see this one, it's filled with some other one, and means this is a type. This is the type have been defined it here. What would be the structure? What would be the book structure? The book structure would be getting from here. Where you define that book from? This book from is this structure. And if you wanted to make reuse it, let's say when should I define a types? Okay, let's say that you have one of the uh, customer information, maybe customer ID, customer name, and then you have the billing address and shipping address. But if you see here, whatever the only billing address and shipping address, root element will be different. But under billing address and a shipping address, all your elements will be address 1, address 2, city, state, country, all these zip code, all these are common. When you think whether it's a billing and shipping address, it means in that case you can define address structure once. Maybe you can define address structure once here. And when you define a billing address here, you can define type. When you define a shipping address again here, in define shipping address again here, you can just refer the same address structure. It means it will save your time and it will be more efficient when you are using the defining, when you are creating your schema based on the types. Types will only helpful unless until you are reusing the elements. You have some reusable, have any elements that can be reused. Otherwise, if you are not, there are only one element is being using and you are not using that, reusing that element multiple times, it's not much useful of defining the types. Wherever it's really useful and it can be reduced your schema size, then it will be good. So this is what I was talking about, shipping address and billing address. What you can do, you can just define all address structure once. You can define all address structure once as a type. You just define only two elements, shipping address and billing address. You don't need to worry about what again do you need to redefine all the structure. If you are not using types, what you need to do under shipping address, again you have to define all these elements. Again under billing address you have to define all these elements. It means the same elements are creating a duplicate. So that's the reason you can save your time. You can define it once and use it for this and use it for this as a type. The way how we are defining it here. Define it once and use it. Let's say if you are just using any types, right? Maybe you can just add one more thing. Add a complex type. You can just define address type, something like that. And you can define all your structure here. Suppose you just define this type and you want, if you are, I think if you are able to edit, you can do add identifier instance. Because when you create from schema, right, it's not editable. So we cannot able to edit this. Let's say we just copy this address element. Then we don't have this copy also. Okay. So once you define this thing, let's add an element here itself. We'll just show you that. Where this is added. Delete type. Add element declaration. Now we can just define shipping address here. For this shipping address, you can just specify this one, address type. Again, if you are putting any billing address something, you can define the same type again. You don't need to define all these elements, and you can be able to reuse all these elements over here. But the thing is, since I already created the XML profile based on XSD, you are not able to add any other elements. If you wanted to add anything, you just have to create your own schema. How to create manually? Then you can able to edit anything. If you wanted to edit when you are creating an XML profile using schema, you do all your modifications there. Do all your modifications in the schema and then you have to re-upload it. Otherwise it won't allow this. You can see here it's not allowing us to show multiple options here. And when you create the same thing here using XML profile, you can see how many options are coming. You can just see how many options are coming. Add child element, add multiple, add. You can able to add at any point of time. You can add in elements. But when you're creating from schema, you are not able to add it anything. That is the way. That's the difference. How we can. What's the difference? Why we need to create schema and why we need to create from the XML file. So mostly, if we have any schemas, we have to go with 100% schemas only while creating an XML profile. And you are not supposed to go with XML. Sometimes when you're going with XML, we have to be a bit more expert in that and we need to adjust all these things. Okay, now we know what is schema and what is all the things. Now let's try to insert these data, whatever the CSV profile what we created yesterday. We'll try to insert this data into your database. Let's see how it will go. Create one more process. I think it's better to try with is there any way that we can create that FTP. If FTP will be enabled here, I think we'll just take the file from FTP. We'll try to enable FTP here. Then go for control panel, add or remove programs, and click add or remove Windows component, turn Windows switcher on off. Okay, program features. Okay, then from there, select click on program feature and then click on control panel, then click on turn Windows switcher on or off. The component wizard, scroll down until you see IIS the list and check it off. They are given as per XP. It will take some time to turn Windows switcher. Program, click on turn Windows on off. After clicking turn Windows switcher on or off, you will see new window, find internet information services and mark check. Mark check on it and click OK button. Okay, internet information services. Yes. Click on OK. Click on OK. Open IIS Manager. Under Connections, right click on the site. It will take some time. Before that, we'll try to take the customer data SQL file. 1 second. One second, I'm just checking some more sample file. Yes, let's open with this one. Okay, you must restart your computer to apply these changes. Restart later. Okay, I think we need to restart it. Then we'll just see from local only. We'll see tomorrow if we can open. And this is a SQL file I wanted to execute it. The first thing is make sure you need to install the database. This is a table I'm going to create it. And if you are install, make sure you install the database. Like what is the database you need to install it. Let's download it. Go for download for Google, and then you see the Oracle Express Edition XE. This will be the lightweight, and you just click on Oracle Express Edition, and then you just go for download it here. Click on accept license, and you can select based on your operating system. Once it selects, if you don't have any account in Oracle, you can just create an Oracle account using your Gmail. Also it will open, and come back to the same and select the same. It automatically log in this time. If you don't have, you can click on create account, and once create your account, go back and see the select the same URL again, and then enter all your username password, sign in on. Then the zip file will be downloaded, and extract the zip file and start the executable file. And when you start executable file, it will just ask you the password. There will be one password. You need to password confirm, re-enter password. You have to make sure you have to remember that password, because that's the password of the admin. System is the admin user. For that user, whatever the password you will be setting, that will be. So you need to make sure you remember the password. Once your password is right. So let me show you how you can create it. Once you install the database, this is how it looks like. Go for Oracle database. Click on go to database homepage. I have installed Oracle 10G version. Even we can log in into the database as a command prompt client or as a browser. How we can log in into there? Let's go here. Once you go Oracle 10G expression, you can see there is a run SQL command line. This is a client SQL database server client. You can execute all your statements here. Let's say if you wanted to connect to database, once your database gets installed, how you can check if the database is properly installed? Let's execute connect and then enter. You can see there is a user called, this is a root user or admin user system, and then you need to enter the password that you set while installing it. So the recommended password is default password for the system will be manager. As per Oracle, the recommended a system manager will be the password. Okay, I think it's looking I have not yet started the service. Let me start my service. Select. Once you install a database, there will be some of services will be gets created here. Go for here Oracle, and this is your main service. You can see XE stands for Express Edition. So I put manually. I don't want to start with OS. Okay, this is the only thing it will be required, and let's see is there any item also is being stopped it. Okay, we'll see these options later, I think. So let's configure from the DB, from the disk. And one more thing before using this database, right? The database server and the Atom both should be on the same server or the same network. Then only your database will be work. database connector will be connected to your corresponding database. So what and all the database types it will support is database types it can support for Oracle, Microsoft MS SQL Server. There are certain types, and I'll show you the database listed of list of database supports we have. Let me click on here, show you that, then go for this shapes, connected shapes, connected components, application connectors, and then technology connectors will be there under technology connectors. And go for technology connectors, go for database. Control F, database. Here you can see. And you can see these are the supported database types. Apache DB, IBM Do, Microsoft ODBC, Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, Oracle, PostgreSQL, Sybase, and any other JDBC are ODBC. So one of my student earlier, he has checked on some YouTube and he was asked me that I wanted to do some integration from the PostgreSQL to some application. I wanted to do this. Will the Boomi supports to, for the PostgreSQL. I was not aware of what is Postgre. It's an actual open source database here. All Oracle, all these not open source. It's a licensed commercial. So this is the open source database, and even Boomi supports it. Even if Boomi is not supporting any other JDBC or ODBC compliant database, it means that you can configure your own database. Even if you are by default, whenever the database is connected is if you are using Oracle or Microsoft SQL Server, for this you no need to configure any drivers, JDBC drivers. You no need to configure. With the installation of an Atom, automatically your drivers also will get installed. If you are using other than this Microsoft SQL and Oracle, right, you need to download the corresponding drivers. Where do you find the drivers? Maybe once you install that native database, right? You can see, let's once you install it, somewhere you will find Go app and then admin, not for admin products. I'm just showing in Oracle, and then go for JDBC, and this is the one of the jar it basically uses. This is the driver jar. For Oracle, this will be the jar, and this jar is already will be there, and it by default with the installation of Atom it will be there, and it can support the drivers for this one. And in case if any of the drivers are not available, you need to keep it all your drivers under the library directory, user under Atom installation directory. Let's say when I say Atom installation directory, it would be, this is my Atom installation directory. This is my home directory. Wherever your Atom name is there, that's Atom directory. Now after that, you need to create a folders like this, user lib database, and inside, if user lib database directory does not exist, you must create it, then restart the Atom. Means if you are using any other databases apart from the Oracle and Microsoft SQL Server, and you can configure, you need to before using the database connector for the first time, you need to configure for the JDBC drivers. You can see the database connector contains drivers of Microsoft SQL Server and Oracle. To connect to any other types of a database, you must obtain the appropriate JDBC driver. And any other files you wanted that you had added to the Atom must be copied into this one. So when you copied it, because this path already specified in the class path, when you copy all your directories here, and then this will be there in Atom class path, and when you are using the database connector, that will be accessible for the Atom. So to replicate, once you started Atom, if you are doing all these changes, before starting, Atom will read all the configuration files and it will load it. After you do any changes, it will not reflect until unless you must restart again. After you restart again, all this configuration will be reading again. So that's the reason if you are doing any configuration like this, you need to restart an atom first. There are certain cases they will ask when do you need to restart an atom? Why you will restart an atom? One thing is we'll restart an atom when you are doing any configuration changes. You can say, you can tell this is the best example. Another thing is if you are using any custom coding, and if you are as part of a custom coding, you might be using some other as part of a custom coding, you are using some other class jar files, and you need to configure the jar files. And other thing is when if your system is doesn't have a memory, you can delete some of the previous log files. If you are doing any atom name or some other atom corresponding properties, and then you can restart it. Okay, I think now we can able to connect it here. Let's try. Enter the password that is set here. It means connected. It means the database is working fine. Now even let me try to open it here. UI is not opening. Okay, let's. I wanted to create one user. I don't want to create all my database table, whatever there in my uh, system user. I wanted to create a separate user. Let me write it some of the script. Drop user. Username is Bhumi. Okay, and create user. Username is Bhumi and identified by password also. I am just setting it Bhumi. After creating it here, you need to give some permissions. Otherwise, you cannot able to log in. So you need to grant. These are the default permissions called connect or resource to which user we wanted to give Bhumi. So after you log in with the system user, you execute these statements. So it will allows you to it will be creating a user called Bhumi. With this user you will be able to log in, and even with this user you will be able to create tables kind of this similarly that default permissions you will get it. And once you create, let's check whether this particular table is there or not. I already created it. If you are not, you just copy paste the entire thing. Let's see. If you wanted to check whether table is there or not, DESC, nothing but it's a description. Description check for customer. Object does not exist. Let's try for customers. Not exist. Okay, let me create. Okay, I think it's I'm using in different. Let me log in with Bhumi user. But make sure whenever you are creating any permissions, whenever you are creating any user or any permissions, we have to do from the system user, because system user is the admin permissions. It has all the access, has all the permissions to require to execute the create user and grant connect statements. Now let's connect with. This is the user. I think I already have created this. Okay, and then now execute the same statements here. I think here also there, not there. Okay, let me create this table. So currently I am in database user called Bhumi. Sometimes the database user will call it as a schema, database schema. Both are referring to the same. You can see the table is created now. Okay, then we'll just see this is a user basically required. Okay, let's configure quickly this one. Sorry, not a database. Okay, database. Okay, let's configure database. And for the database, also you have a inbound and outbound operation. When I say inbound, it is only selecting or retrieving the data. Send nothing but all you can do. You're all insert, update, delete. And since we are doing it first time, we don't have any connections. And when you install, let me just maybe the local database connections. Here, when you are using, these are the predefined types. Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL. Means when you depends on your driver select, automatically class name will be populated here. Let's observe it here under class name. I change this one. What if you wanted to, because the database connector will support all these many types of these many number of database types. Let's say if you're configuring for IBM DB2, you don't listed that there. So what you need to write, you need to select the custom. Means when you're selecting a custom, you need to give the class name. You need to give the class name and connection URLs. That's a B. But if you are using the default one, right, the class name is already hard coded and it's not enabled for you. So we cannot modify it. But if you are giving a custom and you are giving some other supported database types which is not from these Microsoft Oracle and MySQL, then you need to enter username, password, host name, port number. Along with these details, you need to enter the class name also. Okay, now let's say I wanted to connect to Oracle database type. You can see as I am typing here, you can see all the URLs also will be populated here. User is called Bhumi. Let me give the password. After that, if I wanted to connect to the database which is installed on my local host, is installed on my system. So if I can, how we can tell that it's a local host. Port number will be when you installing a database on the installation summary. Before start installation, the installation summary, you can see the port number will be using for 15221. And what would be your database name? The database name would be XE. You can see the bracket says XE. If you install an enterprise edition, your database name would be ORCL. So Oracle. This is the XE. These are the parameters you need to remember. What is the port number? What is the database name and localhost, and with this you are able to connect to your database. Click on save and close. Now for this operation, click on operation plus. It's new. I'm going to configure customer DB customer send and if you see when you click on plus, it basically is the profile. When you click on plus, what is the profile it is creating? Database. It means the database connector will use the database profile. So even you can create, say, there are the two options here, standard or dynamic. Means when you are going a standard, means you have to write your own query. What is the query you need to write? If you are using insert, if you are trying to insert a record in your database, you need to write your insert query. If you are writing your, if you are using this database connector for updating any some record, you need to write update. If you are doing delete, it means you need to write your own query as well as you need to add your fields manually. But when you are adding a fields manually, make sure this data types would be matching it to the data corresponding columns that you created in DB. Otherwise, it will be throwing the validation. So that's the reason mostly we will try to go for dynamic insert. It means wherever you can say dynamic insert, dynamic update, dynamic delete, means that you can by using the import wizard, you will be able to add your statement, all your columns as well as the table name also will get populated. And when you're running this connector on the fly, the statement will be generated as the name dynamic says. Let's go with this one. Import, select the atom. Make sure when you are selecting an atom, the database also should be on the same server, same machine. Yes, this is the atom that was installed in my local machine, and we'll click on next. Then it will try to connect to the database using the database connection that we specified. What has the database connection have the details? It has the username and password and host name and database instance name. If your whatever the credential is specified in the database connection is proper, then it will connect to your database and it will show you the list of database tables available here. Okay, why it is giving unable to browse, unable to browse caused by unable to open a database connection. Network adapter could not be established caused by. Okay, let me just see. Okay, basically what happens is database is server. It's a kind of a database server is kind of a there is a have one more thing. If you wanted to listen connection, then it means when I send a request, Boomi is a kind of one of the client for the database. Now I am connecting to database through Boomi. Means Boomi is a client. If the database server want to accept the connection request from the clients, there will be a one component called TNS listener. You need to start this. TNS listener nothing but this is a one it handles the requesting part. Is the one it handles the requesting part. So when it means when I click on next, it will be trying to connect to database. This request has to be TNS listener should be running. Okay, now let's see. Now what is it? Now we are getting a different error. Unable to browse connection caused by unable to open a database connection. Listener refused the connection with the following error. The listener does not currently know SID of given in connector descriptor. The connection descriptor used by the client was localhost XE. The listener refused the connection or following error. Okay, let me change what we have mentioned there. Database is name correct only. Let's give XE small. Will it be any matter? I think we need to give small. I don't know, sometimes even if capital also will work it. Okay, it means that now it is showing the database table from the all user. You can see where can you can find the user. It means the table name prefixed with username. Username in database terminology you can call it as a schema. Okay, database schema, and XML schema is different again. It's a database schema. So you can see that your so many tables are there, from system tables, all user defined, user created tables. So many tables are there. I don't want to list it out all the tables. That was all the tables. I don't want to list it out all the tables. I wanted to filter it out all the tables. Only I am looking only the table that was created in this particular account. Let's say this is the schema. I wanted to filter out the schemas based on the and to filter out the database tables based on the schema. So make sure you always give the capital. Means you are filtering the schemas. Means it will only now since I given only the Boomi, whatever the user database tables that has been created in this particular schema, it only showing. Okay, this is the one I wanted to select out. Click on next. When you click on next, it basically shows you all the columns, and depends on the columns you wanted to configure. You can go ahead and you can select it manually specific columns, or else you can select all, and when you click on finish, all your metadata structure, with this metadata structure your database columns will be imported here, and the table name also gets created here automatically. You can see the customer ID is set based on the type. You can see customer ID is created as a number, remaining number of order is a number of orders is a number, and date is a date type. You can see that. Create customer insert. Now let's click on save and close. So now I am getting a data. Save and close. This time instead of reading from plot file, right, what I can do, I can read the data from XML file that we created yesterday. Okay, now I do have a XML profile, and database connector internally uses the database profiles, but I need to do the translation of a data. Let's go ahead and here. This time I am going to read an XML profile here. I'll be going to browse an XML profile here. This is the customers I wanted to read it, and then I wanted to map this to database profile. This is the customer insert naming. So you just make sure when you have multiple profiles, right? It's better to give the naming proper naming, because the same table will be a same column will be same profile will be gets created even for updating also, deleting also. But if you can able to identify based on name, it will be easy instead of you keep on rebrowse and checking it, because when you are because this account doesn't have a much profiles, it is quickly showing. If you have multiple folders, right, in the real time you'll be having multiple folders, multiple profiles, it will take some time to load all your profiles. So you can select it, and if you are selecting wrong profile, again you need to load it. That's a time waste. So if you give the proper naming convention, that will be easy for us to identify. So this is the one I'm just doing it. On 7 close. Now I am about to configure the XML file detail that I want to read it. Let me try to read this file. So these steps already done. I'm just going a bit fast. Actually, this process will failure because the timestamps will not be proper, because we have to map directly the timestamp. But here I put this is the timestamp. But DB in database we have defined the type called date. Date means it accepts only specific format of date, and I am not sure which format actually accepts it. So let me give the process. Okay, test execution of there. Embedded message cannot insert null into customer ID. Okay, somewhere the customer ID is not mapped properly. That's the reason, since the customer ID is a primary key, and it's not allows any duplicate values as well as the null values. That's the functionality of primary key. Means in one of the field we are not actually mapping the customer ID. Let's see what exactly we are getting. Why we are not getting document data here. See first what file we are getting here. Customer ID is there always. The customer ID is always present here. It's a map input, nothing will be there. Go here. See customer 198 we are mapping it. It means see, if you observe it here, your actual record will be start out here, and the database profile will be end out here. Out start and out end. In between that, each column will be separated with this one. It's a kind of a CSV file again, comma delimited file. Each column will be separated with this character, and each line, each row will be separated by this character. Means if you are seeing here, in between this is a row separator, and in between this I don't have this customer ID is available here. Let's say from one of the customer 198. This is 198, and I can see 149 is the number of orders, but I don't find any order data. Order date also it is not showing. Why these two fields are not mapped? Let's see. Okay, order date also not mapping. Let's see why it is not mapping here. Customer ID, customer ID, customer name. It's mapped everything. Then why it is causing an issue? What is there here? Nothing restrict anything. What we can do, we'll just let's see if we are in double quotes. We'll just try to put only one record. Let's see, that will be easy for us to track. How you can comment it here? Put the this is the one ending. I want you to comment it all out, all of this. Then this is the arrow mark. Means I have done comment all of the customers. Only one thing I have put it here. Let's rerun the process this time with one record. Let's see why it is not. Why these two things are not mapping out? Okay, let me see is there any errors here. So here. Then just click on next. Not insert null into Boomi customer ID. First of all, why this customer being wanted one customer one document errors. Executing shop and successfully executed here. So executed. Map okay. What are the options here we have it? The customer ID is not mapping here. Let's change this customer ID to number here. Let's see, I'm not sure whether that will be helpful. Let me change this number. Let me make sure all our numbers on it here. 7 plus. Because of that it is giving any error. Let me just on 7 plus. Run it once again. From database point of view, how we can check number of records inserted? Select count start from customer is a table. R got missed out here. 0. Not in the customer ID is null. Okay, now why? We are getting customer ID, then why we are not getting this? Okay. No other conditions are there. First, what we can do, we just set whether we are able to retrieve that particular value or not. We can use the properties here. I wanted to set for set the dynamic process property. So I wanted to see whether the profile is properly working or not. This one we are able to get the data or not. I wanted to set a value of customer ID here. For the property name CID, I'll just define this is a property name. Okay. Means I am creating a one variable set using a process property name. That's the name is CID and I'm storing a value from the customer ID. Let me retrieve this value if it is executing properly. Let me retrieve this value. And I wanted to see it here. I think even we can directly see, even we can directly set a value here also. Both are same. Whether I am setting in set property here and defining CID, dynamic process property, CID, and then selecting the profile from profile element. And even that's the way how we can set the same thing in map using the similar to set property what we have done it. Let me run this process. If this particular customer ID is loading the value means there will be no issue. If it is not loading the value means the profile is not supporting with this XML file. I never face these issues. I have used the same file and same database table for so many times. We will get one database table, date formats are not matched and we just need to use one function based on the expected format. Let's see this time. Yeah, that's the reason we are getting customer ID is getting actual null value. Why this is a one we are getting null value? Is there any namespaces here? Don't think we have any namespaces here. Means this is the reason we are actually getting it. Customers. Let me just check whether all these strings are properly matching or not. I think this is a capital one. That's the reason it's not mapped. Okay. I need to create the profiles exactly. Let me just go ahead and here. Let me edit this profile. This is this one, and this is also is not coming here because it's also different one. This one is a order date. It also have issues. Okay, this time it will work it. Now we don't need to keep all these things. This time it will work. Because if the element names are not matching, then now as I told you it will get this error. Now go for here and search for date functions. You have to go for date functions here. This is the date format function we need to use it. But before you can say date format function actually accepts the three arguments. One is the actual data, what you are getting a data, and that data what is in source format and to which format you wanted to convert it. So let's go ahead here and see what is our format. Year, month, date, hour, minute, second, millisecond plus time zone. What is this for this one? This is the time zone. This is the value. And what is the expected format here is embedded message, unable to set date time, value, this is the value, it doesn't match the format, this is the format that I expecting. It means we basically need to send, this is the target format and this is the source format we are sending it here. Both are same, it's also same, like anything. So we just have to use date function here. Go for date functions here, user defined, go for date format. This is a kind of a manipulation you may need to do whenever you are getting any errors or if you need to do exactly the translation. Output. This is the output format I wanted to get, but I wanted to map the date string. Date string, yes, I can map it like from here. So I just have to remove this one. So this time even I'll just uncomment the existing ones also. Let me just save it. Means I'm sending a file customer information. Click on save and close. Run this time. And execute the select start count. You can see that six records are being inserted here. 6 records are being inserted. Let's see what is the columns you have been inserted. Select cust ID. You can give the column names capital or small in the table, database table. And cust underscore name from customer. You can see that this is the cust ID, this is the cust ID, this is the cust ID, and total 6 records are there. You can just compare it 198, 188, 196, 198, 188, 196, and you can see 186, 184, 400, 186, 184. These are records from inserted. And this is the way how we can insert the records into a database. Tomorrow I'll show you some other concepts how we can query and how we can update it. I'll just add some other logic to here. If any doubts, we can otherwise we can continue next session.
Okay, so our next session will be tomorrow.